Good night, everyone. It is chilly out. We're here working on the Pathfinder, and a little interesting project. We made this awesome tube bumper. My buddy Wes, he helped me tube bend, weld it up, all that good stuff, and it fit great. You probably watched the video on how we made that bumper. So I come along and dig around in my basement and realize I have a body lift for the truck. All right, let's put the body lift on. Well, when you raise the body and the bumper's mounted to the frame, the bumper stays in the same place, the body's higher, and things don't really look right. So now I gotta rethink bumper mounting. A good thing about the body lift is it raised the lower radiator support, so we have clearance to this cross member, this ladder rung, so to speak, in this ladder frame. So what I want to do is I got a couple of Harbor Freight standard receiver tubes, which are just 2-inch Hitch receiver tubes that they claim a 5,000 pound capacity. But basically, we're just going to try to cut a square hole here and then weld them to the frame. And we'll put one on each side and then the matching 2-inch square tubing. So hopefully we can just slide the bumper on and off when we pull the hitch pins. And I ought to just weld the bumper to the frame, but I want something removable, so we're gonna see if we can make it work. Subscribe. All right, so step one, fit up and figure out where to cut. Now this receiver tube fits pretty snugly where we're trying to jam it. So in a nutshell, you can see where that little hole is right there. You need to cut to the outside edge of that hole, make it a vertical cut that aligns with the outside edge of that hole, and remove this and this, knock it out, jam this in there and weld it around, and we should be good to go. Now, we're gonna try some trial and error here, because I don't know what the best way to cut this is. Like my Sawzall, maybe, it kind of fits, but not really. But I have this air-powered, cutoff tool I've never used because I've never had a compressor big enough to run it until now, which is pretty funny. And I think this will fit just enough in here to make that cut, or at least get us started to a point where we can transition to the Sawzall. And then I have the angle grinder, but that's too big. 4-inch cutting wheel is not going to fit in there, so we're going to have to use a combination of these two things and make them work. So let's go get our air hose. Usually I would not wear safety glasses because let's say I have a very high risk tolerance, and that's not the smartest thing, but I'm sure that despite being marked not for children, some kids will wind up watching this. So we're going to use safety glasses today to lead by example. Let's see if this bad boy will cut. Alright, after much deliberation and failed attempts with the Sawzall, it looks like the best thing to do is to trim the receiver tube down to size and just weld it in here. There's plenty of metal to weld to. It'll be nice and strong. It's going to be welded directly to the C-channel of the frame. I think we'll be good. Then we'll just kind of hide the ugly cuts that didn't work out. What I didn't realize is going on here is there's actually a welded nut on the inside of the C-channel of the frame here. So if you try to cut from this direction, you'll have to go through the nut if you want the receiver tube to really slide down in there. So we're just not going to do that. This truck doesn't weigh that very much, and if it breaks while we're trying to winch it out, it breaks while we're trying to winch it out. No biggie. Now the question is, how far do you want these things to stick out? Because obviously you don't want it here jutting out that far off the bumper. You really want the minimum length this direction. So this is a standard Hitch, 6,000 pound rating, so we're going to see how far you need to slide that in and mark it and cut it. So it looks like if we cut it right there, we'll have plenty of space for enough length of receiver tube to be good. So yeah, let's mark it and we'll just cut both of them the same. So we're just gonna do this by eye because I don't feel like getting up and getting a Sharpie right now. And we're gonna answer the question, which we all wonder when we're looking at buying one of these bad boys, is how well does the Harbor Freight 14-inch abrasive disc cutoff saw cut thick steel? And I have a feeling the answer is going to be not very, but we're going to do it anyways. So I'll just put this here, lined up with the blade. Oops, had to do that from the top. Yeah, that's a good amount of length to stick out. So you just set that bad boy at 90 degrees, snug her down so she don't go anywhere, get your hearing protection, and then go to town. So let me go grab my hearing protection. She's just not getting it done, so we're gonna try a little trick. We're gonna rotate it about 45 degrees and come at the corner. All right, now that is not precise or easy work, and the saw struggled a ton. But as much as the saw struggled, it did do it, so I'll give credit where credit's due. So it's not a square cut, you know, but it's square enough. We'll make up for it in the alignment when we make the final adjustments and weld it so everything fits like it should whenever we're done. All right, onward to the second tube. I'm not going to show you that one because it's just going to be as boring as the first. Oh, what a chore. All the dust. Speaking of personal protection, I should have wore a mask. Not for coronavirus, but for the metal dust. I always forget to do that. Don't forget to do that. Wear a mask. Now we have 2 tubes that are about the same length, and we'll make sure they're where they need to be once we install them. But yeah, let's clean them up and align them and weld them. Weapon of choice for cleaning up metal for me right now, it's an angle grinder and a flap disc. I do have a bench grinder, but I don't feel like moving. I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. So let's get them cleaned up. This one's cleaned up pretty good and should weld nicely. Let's get the other one cleaned up and start the alignment process. I cleaned up the frame about as much as I can with the flap disc, and there's a few other corners that I could probably get away without cleaning up right here, but I just want to touch them up with the wire brush and the drill. That way anything that the weld bead touches is a nice clean surface, and we'll have the strongest weld possible on our old Nissan pickup. Now everything's clean enough. The fit up's pretty good. This angles down to match this H and the ladder frame, H frame, whatever you want to call it. So this what's in theory slightly reduce our approach angle. But this thing, I don't ever plan on making it a rock bouncer, and this is still higher than the front cross member. So that means when I'm chugging along, if my front bumper clears, my cross member clears, and I don't have to worry about damaging anything under my vehicle. So I'm going to continue on this path since it seems pretty solid thus far. We got everything square, everything seems to be fitted pretty well. So let's go ahead and start trying to get her tacked into place and do some welding. I got my welding cable twisted up. I gotta actually move my welding machine a little farther away so the wire can go through properly. Alright, that looks alright. Let's try that. Alright, one tack I like to try and go around and tack it in a couple of places to keep the metal from pulling as I weld. I just got welded and done welding on one of them, so we're going to try to lift it with the floor jack. See how strong it is. Let's see if I see any signs of weakness. Man, that looks like it's holding. Could see it flex a little bit, but it's just still flexes, so good enough for me. So we got this one tacked into place, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's not quite square enough. So we're gonna see if we can try to remedy it with the sledgehammer. Yep, almost square. Oh, we broke the tack weld. That's all right. Just needed a little reset, didn't we? Let's try it again. This time, square in place. Now usually I'd use my digital angle finder to get a reference and see if everything's in the same plane or not, but I can't do that because the batteries are dead. So I'm going to get creative and try to just roll this pole up and see if the angle of the bubble changes between positions. Are not in the same plane. But it's not a lot, so maybe it'll work out. So let me think about it and see how I can figure out which direction this is pointing and make sure it's the same direction that that's pointing without going to Walmart to get more batteries for my angle finder. So I taped the screwdriver to my level as a shim and found where the bubble is in the center. So if I move it over to this one, the bubble's not in the center. So then I know in the vertical plane, these two guys are not pointing the same direction. So I'm going to try to manually move it around, manually move it around. So I'm going to try to hit it with a hammer till it's pointing the same direction. Now we're going to switch to my phone because my GoPro battery died, and all our welding's done. It is sufficient, so we're going to call it a night. Thank you for watching, and remember, subscribe.